Yeah. Am I live now? Is it good? Okay. Yes, this is RSM, Rajat Mandal here. I I welcome all of you to my first ever YouTube live on Funny Boy. So I have been meaning to go live for a long time. I have been meaning to go live for a long time, but I have been lately very busy. So finally, I have sort of compromised with the pressure of my fandoms with RSMians, and here I am, Rajat Mondal, uh, a proud queer theorist, going live on my queer theories, uh, and I have been uploading random videos on queer theories in my YouTube channel. So this is a continuation of my effort to celebrate my queer theories with my students, and I hope they would. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I hope they would excuse me, right? I hope they would excuse me if I make any mistake or if I make any disaster while going live with the rest of the world. So I welcome all of my students, my teachers, my colleagues, my fans in India and abroad in my first ever YouTube live. What I'm doing here, I'm going live in YouTube with uh, Sam Salvador's Funny Boy, and I am planning to read uh, exactly from page 76, which falls into the second chapter of Radha Aunty. So thank you for the subscribers. Thank you for the followers. Thank you for my fans. Thank you for all those people who stand by RSM. Uh, and I really appreciate. And I can see so many my followers, my fan, and my students, my professors, my colleagues are queuing up to listen to me when I'm going live for the first time in my life. So I'm very excited actually to go live internationally. So this is page number 76. Page number 76. Uh, I would be. I would be. I'm actually very nervous, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed and excited. It's a plenty of butterflies in my tummies. So, so thank you. I can see the chat box is absolutely brimming with with excitement of RSMians. So now Amma, Mala Aunty cautioned, please remain. This is for those people who are not third semester students of Kalyani University. uh, uh, or third semester students of my college. Uh, uh, so for those people who are not familiar with the text or familiar with the development that work that I have been doing in YouTube Live or my YouTube shoots or in my other Google Meet chats and meets, I am clarifying that what I am doing in this YouTube Live is that I am teaching Funny Boy. I don't like to use the word teach. I don't like to use the word teach. So what I'm doing is I am uh, mm, uh, sort of in a adda with my fans and my my followers that I am doing page 76 from Funny Boy, and the page 76 of Funny Boy, which technically falls into the chapter called Radha Aunty. So for those who are not aware of it, for those who are not familiar of it, Radha Aunty is my favorite chapter, and I would waste probably a couple of more minutes to explain why Radha Aunty is my favorite chapter, because Radha Aunty reminds us of a very important mythological figure called Radha. Right? Radha Aunty reminds us of a very important mythological figure called Radha. Now, who is Radha? Radha is the friend of Krishna. So when we talk about friendship with Krishna, we are not talking about marriage. So, so, so it's a shout out hi to all my fans. Yes, I can see Mir, I can see Monty, I can see my current students like Shubhradeep, Angshuman, Shubho Prakash, Deepeshwar, Bikram, Shahrukh, and all of you, and some a couple of my ex students like Mir, Monty. I could see Monty there, who was who was my absolute favorite student in that academic session, Monty, and I can see also a couple of current students as well, Aditi, and my absolute favorite student, uh, Dibbeshwar, who is a huge fan of queer theory. Uh, and yes, love you, Monty. I could see you for listening to my first ever YouTube live. Thank you for supporting me. I am nothing without uh, the support of my students, my fans, my followers. You are Rajat Mandal. I am not Rajat Mandal. You are everything. You are what you make me. Your fan base, your following, your love, everything that makes RSM that RSM is. I'm nothing without it. I'm absolutely nothing without my fans, without RSMians, as you affectionately call me. So yes, Kunal. Okay. This is time to do some very interesting academic work today. So Radha is very important figure, and why is Radha important figure? Because Radha is a friend of Krishna. So when we talk about Radha Krishna, we talk about couple of things. Okay, we talk about couple of things. The first thing that we talk about while we talk about Radha Krishna is that Radha was not the wife of Krishna, neither was Krishna the husband of Radha. So who were they? Radha and Krishna, they were lovers. So so they celebrate relationship outside marriage. So what does Radha do? The mythological figure of Radha delinks. The mythological figure of Radha delinks, separates, delinks and separates love from marriage. Now, who is absolutely upset? Who will become absolutely upset with this separation from love and marriage? Patriarchy. Patriarchy would be absolutely upset. And I could see almost, although I'm going live in YouTube, I can't see faces of my fan, but I could see them laughing and almost falling off their chair when I say this, because patriarchy does two things incredibly well. And patriarchy, which I call a coronavirus, and queer theory, the vaccine of the coronavirus. So patriarchy does two things. What does patriarchy do? Patriarchy sort of sentimentalizes sex, and to a point, and so much so that almost you have to have sex with a person whom you marry. And thereby, what does patriarchy achieve? Patriarchy connects love with marriage through the sentimentalization of sexual intercourse. So this is one thing that I find extraordinary. Patriarchy successfully keeps on doing. Now, patriarchy does another thing. What does that patriarchy do? The second thing, patriarchy always links, always connects, links, or straddles, always links, connects, and straddles patriarchy, love with marriage. Love with marriage. You cannot love a person without marrying her or him. A, you have to be heterosexual, and B, you have to marry someone if you love. If you don't marry that person whom you love, oh God, you are such a loose character guy. You are such a loser. You are such a bad guy, bad character guy. How can you love me without getting married to me? Oh, really? Then was Krishna the husband of Radha? Was Radha the wife of Krishna? Really? Okay. Then where Radha Krishna? I mean, they were a couple. They were a couple, right? So Radha Krishna, therefore celebrates. And those people who always accuse me of using sex, gender, desire, sexuality everywhere, I mean, I have got a message for them in my first ever YouTube live internationally. And wherever they are, in which part of the world they may be, a message. And what's that message? The message is that love has got nothing to do with marriage. Love has got nothing to do with sexuality. And love has got nothing to do with sentimentalization and straddling with marriage. So when you do that, you strategically do that so that it can be clubbed with marriage. And why is it important for love to be clubbed with marriage? Because unless you club with marriage, prem korecho biye to baba kortei hobe tomake. Now, unless you do that, what happens? You produce kids. And what happens when you produce kids? The market will go swinging, and the capitalism would be very happy because the market is going okay. So therefore, in order for capitalism to run, and in order for capitalism and market to keep afloat, you need heterosexual love to be converted into marriage. So when we talk about Radha and Krishna, I think Indian culture is incredibly queer even before the Mughals and the British came to India. Indian culture has always already been queer. Indian culture has always already been tremendously, I can't put enough emphasis, incredibly queer. And there are plenty of people, no sir, the queer theory, the homosexualities, And the bisexualities, the lesbianisms, they were brought from America. Right, absolutely right. My love for them, for their stupidity, my kisses for them, for their lack of knowledge, my love for them, for their absolute ignorance, for their lack of scholarship. Get a life, read some books. Because, yes, homosexuality has been brought from America. Huh? Because Krishna was an inhabitant of New York. Radha was inhabitant of Los Angeles. And Radha Krishna love story is a part of American myth. So if they are part of Indian culture, ancient Indian culture, as Ruth Venita and Salim Kedwai in their famous book, Ancient Indian Materials, have already pointed out absolutely beautifully. So what is interesting over here? What is interesting over here is that I want all of you listening to me in my first ever YouTube live to understand that queer is Indian. Can you see the rainbow flag just behind my YouTube live? This is rainbow because it covers all the colors, much like India. India celebrated all the colors. India celebrated all the communities. This culture believes in inclusion, not in exclusion. And that's why queer is not about sexuality. That's why queer is not about desire. Queer is not about sex and gender. Queer is about politics. Queer is about politics. It basically is about politics. So when you talk about queer, you talk about a political position that is athwart. I would talk about athwart a lot in the days to come. But meanwhile, let me go back to page 76 of Sham Salvador's queer fiction, Funny Boy. Now, Amma, reminder, page 76, for those who are joining in, tuning in late. Now, Amma, Mala auntie caution, please remain calm. Nothing will be gained by shouting at her. Mala auntie was a doctor, so her opinions were highly valued even by Ammaji. Radha auntie came into the dining room. By the way, everybody listen to this is again it's interesting. Everybody listen to Mala auntie because Mala auntie was a doctor, right? So since Mala auntie was a doctor, so everybody listens to Mala auntie because a doctor is more knowledgeable than everyone else. Why? Because doctor studied science. Because doctor studied science. And whoever has studied science, I'm sure plenty of audiences in my YouTube live must be from science background. So this is my gift for them. Okay, those who study science, they are superior creatures. They are more epistemologically privileged creatures. They know everything. And we, the students of literature, culture, and arts and humanities, they are underprivileged creatures. So this is science and this is arts. And that's why science is masculinized. পুরুষ মানুষ সায়েন্স নিয়ে পড়বে, আর বন্টি বাড়ির ও সাহিত্য নিয়ে কাছের একটা কলেজে ভর্তি করে দেবো আমরা। গুড, very good. Do you know who are you? You are a bloody, I can't use that word since I am in YouTube live. You are a bloody patriarchal. You are a bloody patriarchal. And that's why you think science is male and something that should be allowed to be taught to the boys, and arts is something. And that's why whenever somebody comes from science background, আমি বিজ্ঞান নিয়ে পড়েছি, আমি আর্টস নিয়ে পড়েছি, almost I hide my face in shame. What have you আমার অবস্থা তো আরোই খারাপ. I am a male, hopefully. And I have studied arts, and my parents didn't talk to me for years because I studied arts in spite of being only one male child. So you see, there is a patriarchal hierarchy, there is a gendered hierarchy between science and arts. And this is exactly why, since Mala auntie, right? this is exactly, this is getting interesting right now. So since Mala auntie has studied science and has become doctor, so আমরা সবাই মালা আন্টির কথা শুনবো। কেন? Because Mala auntie has studied science, and Mala auntie is a doctor, right? Okay. Radha auntie came almost Mala auntie, Radha auntie, Kanti auntie. This is too much auntie. Almost Funny Boy has become Auntie Niketan. It should have been a more of a queer Shanti Niketan. Radha auntie came into the dining room briskly and took her seat. She looked around and smiled. Well, she said, here I am. Jisko jo bhi ukhar na hai ukhar le. That sort of expression. And they stared at her, nonplussed. She reached out and helped herself to some pittu. You think this is funny? Ammachi said after a few moments. Yes, Ammachi, this is funny. Right? Now, let's talk what exactly is funny. When I use umbrella in sunshine, I am funny. When I cannot play cricket, I am funny. When I cannot produce kids, I am funny. When I cannot be husband, I am funny. When I cannot fight violently with other male, I am funny. I am telling you what funny is. But when someone gets married and produces 10 children, nobody finds it funny. When someone sleeps with girls and decides a particular girl whom he has to sleep with rest of his life because she amar bou, this is not funny. This is not funny, right? So I think finding effeminate voice funny is an act of violence. I really really think that finding effeminate guys funny is an act of violence. I would explain why I think this is an act of violence. I think this is an act of violence because it robs that effeminate guy his identity. Why? Because he has something between the legs. And when I say something between the legs, I do not mean finger. And I do not mean finger. So when I say something between the legs, I do not mean my finger. So the presence of something between the legs makes me funny, right? Because I am gender assigned male at birth. So what am I expected to do? I'm expected to do the performance of masculinity. I'm expected to do beat your nose. I'm expected to ride bike without helmet. Now, you wonder, why do you ride bike without helmets? Because if you do not ride bike without helmet, you cannot be male. You cannot be male. You cannot be man. Why? Because man does not have a body. Only woman has a body. Man is gas. Man is deodorant. Why am I saying this? Because there are so many men who want to go out into the streets during Corona because they do not have a body. So Corona won't infect their body. There are so many men who pee in the streets. যেখানে সেখানে যত্রতত্র Niagara জলপ্রপাত. So whenever they pee in the streets, they are not ashamed because they do not have a body, so nobody can see them. They can ride bike without helmet. They can ride bike without helmet because they won't die, because they are not body. They do not have a body. आघात लागবে কোথায়? Because मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता. हाँ, बिल्कुल ही नहीं होता. Yes. And why मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता? Because मर्द does not have a body. So this is breaking news. পুরুষ মানুষের দেহ থাকে না. পুরুষ মানুষ হলো invisible gender. পুরুষ মানুষ হলো general gender, and that's why when you go to train, there is no coach called male coach. There is a female coach. This is called general coach. So often people say, sir, what is man? I say man is gas. Man is deodorant. Man is wild stone. Man is perfume. See, so man doesn't exist as a body. So when I use umbrella to protect myself from sun rays or from rainfalls, what am I doing? I am doing a ghorotara aparad in patriarchy. I am protecting my body, and when I protect my body, I say that I have a body. And when I say I have a body, that means patriarchy says, how can you have a body? Are not you a male? Don't you have that thing between your legs? I do. So you should not have a body. Leave the umbrella back home. Face the rain and the sun. Play cricket in the blazing sun, as RG was made to do in Funny Boy. Now, this is where science, colonialism, capitalism, and patriarchy, they are hand in gloves with each other. Absolutely, they are hand in gloves with each other. They are best of buddies. So next time, if you use a helmet and if you have something between your legs, you should be ashamed of yourself for having used the helmet. Keep the helmet back home and ride the bike like a man, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Because mard does not have a body, and so that's why mard ko dard kabhi bhi nahi hota. Wow. Clap, 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 clap. Now, you think this is funny? Ammachi said after a few moments, I could tell she was really trying to control herself. No, she replied brightly. I think it's very serious. Oh, it's very serious. Oh, what is very serious? Because my daughter has talked to a boy. আমার মেয়ে একটা যুবক ছেলের সাথে কথা বলেছে। কাল যদি প্রেগন্যান্ট হয়ে যায় আমার মেয়েটা, আপনি দায়িত্ব নেবেন? না, আমি তো নেবই না, এমনিও নিইনি। So the thing is that talking to a girl or talking to a boy is illicit affair, as Ammachi would say, because I'm telling you why it is illicit affair, because it is not directly related to marriage. So if it is not directly related to marriage, so patriarchy is not benefited. So if a boy talks to a girl as a friend, like Radha and Krishna, or Krishna and Radha for that matter, as friend, as I always say, there are plenty of boys, they say, I respect women. I really respect women. Never respect a woman. Please don't respect a woman. Take a woman as your friend. Take a woman as your friend. And when you take a woman as your friend, I don't necessarily mean take a woman as your wife. Absolutely. I could see plenty of exciting comments coming from a very talented student of mine called Aditi Mandal from Bahrampur Commerce College, University of Kolkata. Now, excuse me. Now, when you take a woman as a friend, who becomes upset? Who becomes upset? Patriarchy. Why? Because that means this is not being transferred into marriage. And once any relationship that does not get transferred into marriage, patriarchy becomes very angry with. Patriarchy becomes incredibly upset with. So, you think this is funny? Yeah, I find it incredibly funny. And that too without quotation. Ammachi said after a few moments, I could tell she was really trying to control herself. No, she replied brightly, I think it's very serious. Let's see how serious it is when Amma puts an end to your acting king and I. Okay, let me explain this. Mother, why can't I love this boy? Tash. This is their answer. And why do they do? Because parents do not have answer. And why do parents not have the answer? Because parents did not answer them. And why did the parents did not answer their parents? Because their parents did not answer them. Because pigs can't fly and fish can swim. So this is the kind of thing that we carry from one generation to another generation. Whenever we ask a question to our parents, to our mom and dad, to our seniors, I specifically involve the teachers, the seniors, the parents into this category, because I find 99.99.99.99% teachers are transphobic, are homophobic, and absolutely patriarchal. And this is exactly the reason I have chosen this profession, to be a part of that 0.000000001% of population of teachers. So now, and since I'm a part of that 0.0000001% of population, I'm very unpopular. No student loves me. No one bothers about me. No one listens to me. I'm so unpopular and unloved. My lecture is probably the most unfollowed lecture in Bengal. I know that. I know that. I could see that. Now, 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 the thing is that something Ammachi, what Ammachi did, I will not let you go to the theater. দেখি এবার তুই কি করে প্রেম করিস. Oh, she said and waited. I'm going to call Doris this evening. Now, who is Doris? Doris is the woman who is helping them rehearse that drama. And I will talk about Doris in detail later. And there is an interesting chemistry that Radha auntie would develop with Doris, and Doris would develop with Radha. Call, Radha auntie said. I don't give damn. Radha, Mala auntie appealed to her. Please. What? She said, I haven't done anything. করেছিটা কি আমি? একটা ছেলের সাথে রেস্তোরাঁয় বসে চাউমিন খাচ্ছিলাম। একটা চাউমিন খাচ্ছিলিস তুই? হ্যাঁ। Were you eating চাউমিন? Yes. With a boy? Yes. With a young boy? Yes. Alone? Yes. And now you must be pregnant. No, you must be pregnant. No, I'm not pregnant. So this is something, that's why the problem lies with the patriarchal head of our parents. They think that whenever a young boy talks to a young girl, I mean, he must be doing this. So this is one of the disadvantages I have while broadcasting live in YouTube live. So you have to bear with me. So the thing is that if you, now, have you seen the old Bollywood movies? There was a hero, there was a heroine, and they used to meet with each other. And whenever they used to meet with each other, and whenever they used to meet with each other, I could see my publisher, Mr. Niladri Majumdar, the publisher of Devi Book Concern Mamata Publishing House, is secretly, silently, clandestine ways listening to my talk. So I could see my publisher listening to the talk of the writer secretly amongst my students. So I have caught my publisher among my students listening to the talk of the writer secretly. Hi, Niladri Majumdar. So now when we talk about the old Bollywood films, when we talk about the old Bollywood films, we talk about the boys and girls. They're meeting each other. And when they meet each other, the tree behind them like moves. You see, the tree behind them moves and shakes. পেছনের ঝাড়টা দমদম করে নড়তে আরম্ভ করে, and cut. I'm using a little language of film studies, and cut, and then scene 2. The besmeared Vermilion, Dhabranu Sidur, and the girl is crying. मैं आपकी बच्चे की मां बनने वाली हूं. So when she says that to the audience, to the moviegoers, I used to wonder in my childhood, does the chlorophyll produce children? Are we not born? I thought human beings are born with sexual intercourse. But this Bollywood popular culture tells me that human beings are born with photosynthesis. Okay. I thought human beings are born with semen and estrogen and testosterone and chromosome and hormones. But Bollywood tells me that they are born with chlorophyll. Okay. So this is a breaking news for me. That human beings are not born through intercourse. Human beings are not born with sexual intercourse. Human beings are born with photosynthesis. Oh, and human beings are born not through hormone. My word, human beings are born with chlorophyll. Bollywood has popularized a term which I think should be called herbal sex. And therefore, baby is born through the movement of trees, according to the 90s Bollywood blockbusters. So, and I think Radha auntie's mother believes that Radha could become pregnant with chowmin. Radha could become pregnant with the sausage that she might use in the chowmin. So whenever you talk to a boy, you are a girl, and you eat chowmin, and you sit alone in a restaurant, and the boy is young, hot and sexy, you might become pregnant. So if any girl is listening to my talk tonight in YouTube Live, I have a request for them. If you are a girl, then don't go to a restaurant. If you go to a restaurant, then don't eat chowmin. If you eat chowmin, then don't eat chowmin with a young boy. And if you eat a chowmin with a young boy, then don't eat chowmin with a young boy who is hot, sexy, and wow. And if you do eventually hot chowmin with a hot, sexy young boy, never use sauce in that chowmin. Please. Because that sauce might lead to your pregnancy. And that pregnancy might ruin your family. Please. This is my request, humble request from poor RSM. Now what? Yes. So we have learned a new thing. Never eat chowmin with sauce. That might lead to pregnancy. Even the trans body of the male might become pregnant. So if any boy is listening to my talk in YouTube Live, so they would have to be also careful in not eating chowmin along with a young, beautiful girl in a restaurant in the afternoon. How do I know, sir? At least Radha auntie's mother teaches us that. Doesn't she? Yes, she does. And is she patriarchal? My word. If she is not patriarchal, then I am going to end the stream. I am going to end this YouTube Live right now, right here. Should I? Okay. I'm ending the stream right now, right here. If she is not patriarchal. So the thing is that she and often I have a little message for feminists. I think there are more women who are more patriarchal than men are. I think, I'm sorry. So, excuse me. This is old man coughing and puffing during live lecture. So Ammachi may be sexed female, but does not stop him from being a patriarchal. So patriarchy has got nothing to do with sex and gender. Patriarchy has got nothing to do with sex and gender. Patriarchy is a political position, but then again, queer theory. Queer is also something that is not patriarchal. That is not something that is has anything to do with sex and gender. Queer is a political position that you take against patriarchy. So you can be homosexual and queer, you can be lesbian and queer, you can be bisexual and queer, and you can be heterosexual and queer as well. You heard me right. So what she said, I haven't done anything. Haven't done anything? Ammachi cried, unable to control herself any longer. You flaunt your... Oh, this is my favorite part coming up. You flaunt your illicit relations in public. গুলছড়িয়া ওড়ানো যাকে বলে, ঢিঙ্গি মেয়ে এখানে সেখানে ইয়ং ছেলের সাথে অসভ্যতামি করে বেড়াচ্ছিস সর্বত্র, লজ্জা করে না? ঠাস। and illicit relations. Radha aunty said, what did you say? Illicit relations, অসভ্যতামি, বেলেল্লাপনামি। Okay, so then I am giving you a definition of illicit relationship. Okay, what is illicit relationship? Illicit relationship is any kind of relationship with a man when a woman eats chow mein in a restaurant in afternoon. So whenever any young lady eats chow mein with a young good looking guy in empty restaurant in afternoon, that is called illicit relationship. তোমরা যদি কেউ কোনোদিন কোনো মেয়ে ইয়ং ছেলের সাথে বসে ফাঁকা রেস্তোরাঁয় দুপুরবেলায় চাউমিন খেয়ে থাকো, তাহলে তোমরা বেলেল্লাপনামি করেছো। তোমার বাবা মা তোমাকে ঠিক এই কথাটা বলবে। তাহলে বেলেল্লাপনামি কি? বেলেল্লাপনামি হলো ইটিং চাউমিন ইন এমটি রেস্তোরাঁ উইথ এ ইয়ং গাই। ও বুঝলাম। And I am going to be explaining it slightly more critically in queer terms. Okay. Why do parents find it illicit? I love parents. I absolutely love parents. I love parents. I love teachers because they are incredibly transphobic, they are incredibly homophobic, and they are the most patriarchal people you would ever come across. And and now you need to understand something, that why do you find this illicit? You find this illicit because this kind of relationship, you find this illicit because this kind of relationship does not automatically get converted into marriage. Any relationship, ভালো পুরুষ কারা? ভালো পুরুষ হলো তারাই যারা প্রেম করে যাকে, তাকেই বিয়ে করে, বিয়ে করে সংসার করে এবং 3টে বাচ্চা উৎপাদন করে, করে সেই বাচ্চাগুলোকে বলে তোমরাও এই ন্যারেটিভটা রিপিট করো। কেননা যারা এটা রিপিট করে তারা সুস্থ মানুষ হয়, স্বাভাবিক মানুষ হয়, আর যারা এটা রিপিট করে না তারা অসুস্থ, তারা প্যাথোলজাইজড, মেডিকেলাইজড, as Michel Foucault would tell you. But I am not going to go into Michel Foucault right now, because that would take probably 15 years of my life. so so what is interesting here? Interesting is that since you are dating a boy or a guy or a man who is not fit to be married, and then again, why is he not fit to be married? Because he is not a bad guy or he is not a good guy, because he is a sinhala. And Ammachis, they are the Tamil tiger. So the caste and all those things come in. So already the phobia for gender was there. Now the phobia for nationalism and caste and color would be there. So how many layers do we split? Is it the world that we are looking for? Or is it the world that we are looking for? That how many colors can we unite? I am asking all my YouTube live audience, are we hoping for a world where we all be divided, categorized, separated along the lines of gender, sex, caste, creed, sexuality, nationalism, ethnicity, skin, money? Or are we hoping for a world, or are we looking for a world which is like this square rainbow flag, which is inclusive, which does not leave anyone behind, which does not separate anyone outside, which does not marginalize, which does not peripheralize, which does not medicalize, which does not pathologize, which does not exclude anything and anyone, be it on the basis of caste or creed or color or gender or sex or skin or nationality or money? It's up to you. There are so many young students of honors and MA listening to this talk in YouTube live right now, right here. And I am asking you, I am humbly, politely asking you, are we looking for the first world where we only practice exclusionary politics? Or are we looking for a world which will only practice inclusionary politics? Because patriarchy is predicated upon exclusionary practices. Patriarchy has always been based on exclusionary politics, whereas queer has always been predicated on inclusionary politics. This rainbow queer flag is a symbol, is a political symbol. Is a political symbol of what? Is a political symbol of this inclusionary political ideology in which none gets left out, right? In which none gets ejected or rejected, in which all differences and pluralities would get celebrated. You may be different, but you are part of all of us. I may be more different than so many of you, but I will be a part of all of you. So what queer does? Queer is a political ideology which celebrates differences and which celebrates the inclusionary politics of differences. And what is patriarchy? Patriarchy is a political ideology that celebrates exclusion and all sorts of exclusionary politics at the level of sex, at the level of gender, at the level of caste, at the level of nationalism, at the level of capitalism, at the level of ethnicity. What not? What really not? So since you are talking to a young boy over a cup of coffee or in an empty restaurant, so the mother thinks that the daughter is sleeping around with that guy. Now the problem does not lie with the charitra of the daughter, that is Radha auntie. On the contrary, the problem lies with the patriarchal thought pattern. The problem lies with the patriarchal bloody head of the parents. They need to square their head. There are plenty of girls who talk to plenty of boys as friends, not as husbands or wives, not as prostitutes or sluts, and definitely not as Devi. Because I have a problem with men respecting women. I absolutely hate those men who keep on saying, I really respect women. This is the most patriarchal thing you can ever do. Respect women. I have a request for all of you. Never respect any woman. Take women as your friend. Because this whole culture of respecting women, ami mohilader khub সম্মান kori. You are the bloody patriarch that world can ever see. I plead all of you never to respect any woman, because respecting woman is patriarchal. And why do I think so? Yes, I'm taking the responsibility of my statement. Respecting woman is patriarchal because it involves a denial of friendship. Suppose there are few boys in a room and a girl can come into the room and the boys were cracking jokes on a particular body part of the girl, and the boys stop and the girl leaves, and then the boys start, ki bolchilis ekটু এটা নিয়ে বলতো. They stopped in between because those boys respect women, right? Really? You are one bloody, and respecting women is something that you don't have to do. Take women as a friend. Now, Ammachi, that is the mother of our Radha auntie in Selvedurai's Funny Boy. Ammachi cannot believe, right? Ammachi simply cannot ever believe that my daughter can be a very good friend with a young guy. আমার ইয়ং মেয়ে আর একটা ইয়ং ছেলের সাথে বন্ধু হতেই পারে, এটা পুরুষতান্ত্রিক মস্তিষ্কে সামহাও কোনোভাবে ঢোকানো সম্ভব না. So whenever a young boy would talk to a young girl, the parents of either the boy or the girl would think that they are sleeping with each other or they are having sex with each other. So you tell me what's wrong with the boys or what's wrong with the head of the parents. Now you tell me. So many people are listening to me right now in YouTube Live. So many people are listening to this talk right now, right here in YouTube Live. I have got a question for you. Is there something wrong with the boys and girls talking to each other simply as friends? Or are there anything wrong with the head of our parents? Has the coronavirus called patriarchy infected the head of our parents? Yes, I would say absolutely yes. Do they need vaccine? Yes. Has the vaccine been invented? The process, the PhD work is on. and 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 I don't think we need Russia to send us that vaccine. I think the vaccine has already been there in India, even before the British and the Mughals came. Yes, and I remind you, in I could see that my publisher, Mr. Niladri Mojumdar from Devi Book Concern, Mamata Publishing House, Kolkata, is requesting me to talk little bit about mythology rather than sexuality. So I would like to answer to my publisher that in India, mythology has never been separated from sexuality, and sexuality has never been separated from mythology. If you think about Shiva and Vishnu, Vishnu took the guise of Mohini and hugged Shiva, and Shiva's penis was so aroused that Shiva had to masturbate and ejaculate that semen on a mountain that became gold, out of which Ayappa was born. When you talk about Agni, Agni is born with not with penetration but with scratches. Scratches is a suggestion of homoeroticism. And the marriage, whose oath you got married around the fire, was born out of queer. So queer is far more older than this British and the Mughals, and queer is far more older than the institution of marriage. So when RSM talks about sexuality, RSM talks about mythology. Because in India, there is no spitum, that is in English, separation between myth and sexuality and mythology. Indra, if we talk about Indra, yes, I could see there's Aditi is alluding to Bhagirath. So I do not have the time to keep alluding to all the mythological narratives of ancient India, which are absolutely, explicitly sexual. Absolutely, explicitly sexual. So when we separate sexuality from mythology and mythology from sexuality, we are not being Indian. We are just being colonized. Happy Independence Day to my publisher. So what said, I haven't done anything. Ammachi cried, unable to control herself any longer. You flaunt illicit relations in public. Illicit relations? Radha auntie said in an amused voice. Excuse me. Radha auntie said in an amused voice, honestly, Amma, you think I was a prostitute or something? So, eating chowes with sauce in a restaurant with a young guy makes me a besha, right? So this is the problem why I keep going back to Foucault when he theorized a couple of taxonomies. The one I think is ars erotica, which is more Indian than French, and another one is scientia sexualis, uh, which is more Victorian than ever. I'm sorry, I do not have the time right now to explain these couple of Foucaultian taxonomies from history of sexuality. So honestly, Amma, you think I was a prostitute or something? So this whole concept of if a woman gets married and produce 3 children, she is Devi. And if a woman eats chow with the sauce in a restaurant with a guy, she is a prostitute. I mean, seriously. I mean, give me a break. Give Indian culture a break. Give our old ancient Indian history and mythology a break. Give colonialism a break. Seriously. So much ignorance, so much illiteracy, so much lack of scholarship, pain and plague me. Abruptly, Ammachi stood up, reached across the table, and slapped Radha auntie. এটাই তো পারে বাবা মা. Whenever the son doesn't listen to the parents, whenever the children ask question to their parents, whenever the kids ask for explanation from their mom and dad, they shout, they scold, and they slap. And why do they slap? Why do they slap? Do they slap because they are not interested in answering? Or do they slap because they do not have answer? Or do they slap because they are doing something very correct? I don't know. But what they do, they slap. I think slap is their inability to answer. Because their parents must have slapped them. If my parents slap me, if I ask, why can't I marry a boy? Why do I have to marry a girl? If my parents slap me, then I think they must have been slapped by my grandparents. Then are you talking about a history of thappor? So it's not only Tapsi Pannu who received the thappor. It's not only Sonakshi Sinha who receives the thappor. I think the entire colonization of Indian historiography that is receiving the thappor in a post-colonial queer context. We have to answer our kids. I have to answer to my students. I have to answer to my juniors. I have to answer to my brothers and sisters. My parents have to answer me and the fellow juniors. Their parents needed to have answered them. Just because they didn't ask the question to their parents, that is my grandparents, that doesn't necessarily mean I am not entitled to interrogate them. I would. I have every right to do. You have every right to do. Everybody has every single right to be able to do that. Why would we not ask the question? Why would we not interrogate in the first place? You tell me. We should have started interrogating them way ago, long ago. I think it's late, but better late than never. But better late than never, actually, guys. So why not start asking question right now, right here in this YouTube live itself? I am answering all the questions that my juniors ask, be it my brothers, be it my sisters, be it my students, be it my followers, be it my fan, be it my any other RSMian. I don't slap anyone. Either I will know the answer and I will answer them. If I do not know the answer, look, there are two possibilities. Either I would not have the answer. So I would say that I will have to go back and read and research and come back and try and tell you. So this could be one possibility. But there is another possibility that I might know the answer. In that case, I would be able to answer them as well as I can. But where does the slapping possibility come in? Where does the possibility of slapping creep in? Why does the answer come in the form of thash? I am answering you. Why does the answer come in the form of thappar? The answer comes in the form of thappar because they make sure not only they would have to answer right now, they also make sure that out of the fear of the thappar, they don't ask the same or such difficult question again. So it is the fear psychosis. So it is actually something that theoretically called fear psychosis. So it is the rubric of fear psychosis that the seniors, that these teachers, that these parents, that these elders, that these religious preachers, that they tend to create, in which thappar becomes a full stop. And out of that fear, no further question would ever get asked again. So thappar becomes the final episode of a long web series. Almost the thappar becomes the season 8 of Game of Thrones, which is the disastrous part of the GOT. So abruptly, Ammachi stood up and reached across the table and slapped Radha Aunty tight. And patriarchy. Now now I have been teaching this from the point of view of parents, or from the point of view of teachers, or from the point of view of elders or seniors or religious babus and all those things. But let's try and understand from the point of view of students, from the point of view of juniors, from the point of view of kids and so many children. Now, if we think from their point of view, they also do not tend to ask plenty of questions, because they have seen this history of getting slapped. They have seen the history of getting slapped. And since they have seen the history of getting slapped, so they do not want to be a part of that history where they would also get slapped themselves. So these parents, these teachers, these professors, these religious pundits, and these Haridas Pals, they create this fear psychosis in which nobody would even dare to ask any awkward question again, ever. So it's a strategy. So this is a strategy. And I think this strategy is violence, not because someone slaps. Yes, slapping itself is physically violent, But apart from the physical violence, it is psychologically, emotionally, mentally, traumatically violent, because it creates a trauma. And the memory, I am talking about the theory of trauma studies, but again, I do not have really any time to talk about the theory of trauma studies, because trauma, if I start talking about trauma studies, I would have to start talking about memory studies. But I am investing probably 1 minute on the theory of trauma studies and on the theory of memory studies, because trauma would take us back to the memory, and memory would take us back to the trauma. So the trauma and memory would feed off each other. So I will remember that, oh God, I was abused by that teacher, so I won't ask any difficult question to him or her. I was thrown out of the class because of this or that, so I won't do that again in that class. If I ask a complicated, awkward, or sexual question, I would be scolded, I would be thrown, I would be reported, I'd be taken to the principal, right? I mean, so they create a history of trauma, and you develop a memory in your head of those traumas. So whenever you remember that traumatic incident that had happened to you once upon a time in past, in history, that informs your brain that, hey, don't do it again. Don't you remember that traumatic past of yours? Does your memory never take you back to that traumatic history of yours? And whenever your memory tends to take you back to that trauma, your brain gets informed that, okay, I think I have to be slightly more careful than I am right now. So I would not ask this awkward question to the professor. I would not ask the awkward question to my mom, to my dad, to my uncle, to my seniors, to my elders, so that they don't become upset, so that I don't get slapped all over again, and the memory of that trauma gets revived all over again. I do not want to be haunted by the memory of that trauma all over again. So that memorizing of the trauma becomes almost a historical device which prevents you from asking awkward questions to the teachers, to the parents, and to the seniors and elders of yours. And this is how it theoretically functions. But again, this is not a platform to talk about memory studies and trauma studies, but I could have only theorized this much in a very different critical platform of queer studies. So we all gathered. Auntie stared at Ammachi in astonishment. Then her face crumpled and she began to cry. Ammachi sat down. Even she seemed a little shocked at what she had just done. So even the parents know that they are not doing it okay. But still, you would ask, why do they do it? In spite of knowing everything, they do it because it has been done to them. It's much like ragging. Why are you ragging me? Because I have been ragged by my seniors. So my junior would ask me, sir or dada, why are you ragging me? I would say, I have been ragged by my seniors in past. And that junior would rag his junior also, and answer that I have been ragged by my seniors as well. So this is almost a history of trauma that we hand down from one generation to another, from one posterity to another, and almost create a historiography of trauma. And this traumatized history that patriarchy makes us a part of. and our brain becomes conditioned never to ask difficult questions, never to ask critical questions ever again. So I looked at my plate. RG has got nothing to do with this. It's very sweet of RG. RG looked at my plate, but the sound of those agonized sobs prevented me from touching my food. So he was busy eating, but that thappar, that thash noise of that thappar uh, uh, had shaken RG up. So suddenly he has stopped eating and stopped focusing on the lovely dish that was lying in front of him. Finally, Radha auntie became still. All the vivacity and spirit had gone out of her face. Now that you are calm, let me tell you what you plan to do, Amachi said, trying to sound stern again. This is something again fascinates me. Since I'm a teacher, uh, I find it very interesting to see the body languages of other teachers also. Most of the teachers, they brush their teeth in the morning and they become angry. Some of them see their mirror in the images and become angry. The others drink a glass of water and become angry. And the others, if I haven't included all of them, see the face of their husband or wife and become angry. And some of them simply wake up in the morning and become angry. And they come out and scold their children and kids and students. And you might ask, sir, why are you angry? And the professor might reply, because I am a professor and professors are always angry. If I am not angry, how can I be a professor? Okay, I understand. So it is a part of the profession, being angry. Okay, so something that I have learned again, I cannot be a professor, I cannot be a teacher. Definitely not a very good teacher at all, because I cannot be angry in the morning just having brushed my teeth. I cannot be angry to see my mirror image in front of my aina. No. I cannot be angry seeing my wife because I don't have any. We are sending you to Jaffna to stay with my cousin Nagesh. So actually, Ammachi is trying to clear Radha from Anil. And we're sending you to Jaffna to stay with my cousin Nagesh. Hopefully, after a month, you will come to your senses. Radha auntie curled her lip in contempt. She pushed back her chair and stood up. Then, without a word, she left the dining room. Once she had gone, the tension eased slightly. Really, Amma, Mala auntie said, how could you? Means, how could you slap a grown-up young girl? Ammachi said, I did what was correct. And this is one thing. The teachers and the parents, they would never admit their faults. If I have incorrectly scolded a student, I would never admit. I'd scold the student even louder to cover my fault or my mistake. So being angry is one of the features of a very good teacher. So this is my advice for you. There are so many students listening to me right now. They want to be teachers and professors. But you have to do two things to be able to become a successful teacher. You need to practice anger, A. And number two, you need to practice not admitting your fault ever again. So if you can remain continuously angry throughout your life, you can be a successful professor. And one more thing is that if you can stop admitting your fault ever again, if you never admit your fault, if you never commit any mistake in your life, then you can be even more successful teacher. So these are the things that are important to be able to become a very popular and successful teacher. And I cannot be a very popular teacher. You know how unpopular I am, because I cannot become angry, and I do not know how to be angry, and I admit my faults, because I keep committing mistakes at the interval of 10 seconds. So I keep admitting my faults. So I use slangs in my lectures. I use, as my publisher had pointed out, I use sexuality in my lecture, never use mythology in my lecture as a teacher. So these are the mistakes that I keep committing. So I am a very good example of a bad teacher. I am a very good example of unsuccessful teacher. And obviously I am a very good important of probably very, very, very unpopular teacher. Now, Radha auntie curled her lip in contempt. She pushed back her chair and stood up. Then, without a word, she left the dining room. Once she had gone, the tension eased slightly. Now, Mala auntie got up. I'm good, mother, and I challenge any of you to say otherwise. Ammachi looked around the table, hoping someone would agree with her. No one said anything. Mala auntie got up and left the dining room. I heard her knocking on Radha auntie's door and calling out her name softly. Finally, Radha auntie opened the door. I got up from the table. Where are you going? Ammachi asked. To do pee-pee, I replied meekly. She waved her hand. Dismissing me, she couldn't very well forbid me from using toilet. I hurried through the kitchen and into the side garden. I could hear the sound of voices. I approached Radha auntie window and stood under and listened. So this is a very good example of RG as a gossip monger. But then again, gossip mongering is always gendered feminine. Gossip mongering is unfortunately gendered feminine. কি মেয়েদের মতো বসে বসে গল্প করিস? So this gossiping also has a lingo. I'm not too sure about mythology, but it also has a lingo. So she had no business to do that. Radha auntie cried. I know, Mala auntie said softly. All this is ridiculous. Radha auntie said, are you in love with this boy? Mala auntie asked after a moment. No, I don't know. I don't know whether I love him or not. Radha auntie said. Actually, Radha didn't know whether Radha loved Krishna or not also. I don't know Radha knew what kind of relationship Radha shared with Krishna. Neither did Krishna know what kind of relationship Krishna shared with Radha. I think that is queer. This inability to be able to categorize and explain and underline. That is queer. Queer refuses to be explained, bracketed, categorized, underlined, boxed, fit in. So anyone who fails to fit in into the given boxes of patriarchy. Patriarchy usually gives us two boxes, male and female. We have to pick up one of those boxes. Once we pick up one of those boxes, then we have to pick up another box. That is to say, if I pick up the box of male, then when I become adult, I have to pick up the female box and then live with, tied with the box, that is marriage. Produce more boxes, asking those boxes to fit exactly those kind of boxes. And what does queer do? Queer liberates you from those boxes. Queer releases you from those boxes. I would be really tempted to say the day India would reclaim its pre-colonial history, I think that would be our Independence Day. The day we will reclaim our mythology. Hello, publisher, I'm answering you. The day we will reclaim, India will reclaim our mythology. I think India would be independent. The day we would understand the implication of Radha and the implication of her relationship with Krishna, the implication of Lord Shiva, the implication of Ganesha, the implication of Vishnu in the guise of Mohini, Bhagirath. Unfortunately, we are boys. Even look at Lord Shiva. He was unemployed. He couldn't properly dress. He couldn't take care of his own wife. He couldn't take care of his own family. He was Ardhanarishwar himself. And the Ardhanari in the Ardhanarishwar used to wake up and dance and impress Parvati in case she becomes angry and upset with the husband. So the whole concept of Ardhanarishwara, something that I would be talking about in a college in Mumbai in the weekend. The whole concept of Ardhanarishwara is incredibly queer. And has the concept of Ardhanarishwara been brought from America? Has it been brought from Victorian England? Or has it been brought from France or Italy? Think, read, and critically intellectualize your scholarship. Too much ignorance, too much poverty of scholarship is ruining our life, our identity, our culture, our civilization, our independence, our agency, our entire existence as a culture, as a nation. So, are you in love with the boy? Mala auntie asked after a moment. No, I don't know. Radha auntie said. Then she laughed. The funny thing is, I never thought of him like that until Amma started to make a fuss. It was only after she went to speak to his parents that I began to see him differently. So you are in love? Again, this sentimentalization of sexual attraction as love and a potential commodity of marriage is patriarchal. I think I have theorized this 9 million times already. And Radha auntie didn't answer for a moment. Until a few days ago, I only thought of Rajan. But now I find myself thinking of Anil as well. Mala auntie sighed. It will never work. But other Sinhalas, Tamil people get married. But there are so many Sinhalas are getting married to tigers, and so many Tamil tigers are getting married to these Sinhalis. I know, Mala, auntie said, but they have their parents' nod, they have their parents' opinion, they have their parents' approval. So again, see how patriarchy converts sexual attraction into love and love into marriage, and how marriage is approved by another patriarchal agent called parents. So this is why I think there is a remarkable amount of conspiratorial nexus between adulthood, parenthood, teachership, professorship, and patriarchy. And that's why patriotism has the etymology of pater in it. The pater from which the word father has come. That's why patriotic also has the pater in it, the pater from which father has come. And it is the same pater that also etymologically exists in patriarchy. Same pater from which father has been etymologically drawn. So the pater in patriarchy is not dissimilar to the pater in patriotism. So this whole concept of paterdom or fatherhood is what we are fighting against. When I say father, I do not mean biological father, for my clarification. When I say father, I basically mean any authority that denies us our agency. Any authority, when I say father, I do not necessarily mean biological father. When I say father, I basically mean any authority that simply denies you and me our identity, our agency, and therefore, thereby our individuality. And we have to reclaim this lost identity, reclaim this lost agency, and reclaim this lost individuality. And once we reclaim our individuality, agency, and identity, we would be able to decolonize our intellect, our body, our mind, our culture, our nationalism. So therefore, I find there is no theoretical difference between patriarchy and patriotism, because the whole concept of patriotism is predicated upon patriarchy. I know Mala auntie replied, but they have their parents' approval, consent. If two people love each other, the rest is unimportant. So does Radha love Anil? She might be, might not be. What is the name of the relationship? We don't know. Did Radha love Krishna? She did. But what's the categorical taxonomy of that relationship between Krishna and Radha? We don't know. So our inability to define Radha Krishna's prem makes Indian ancient mythology queer. Queer is Indian, and that's why I keep talking about post-colonial studies in relation to queer studies, and that's why I keep theorizing post-colonial queer, because queer is something that has always already been Indian. Recently, I presented a paper in Rishi Bankim Chandra College, Noihati, in collaboration with one Bangladesh university and couple of universities in Africa. There I was talking about post-colonial queer, not in Indian context, but in African context. And 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 I was trying to theorize how Shepo's character there is incredibly queer, and thereby post-colonial and thereby African. So it is the colonization that has taught us to exclude differences. That only England or France or this or that would be the standard culture, and rest of the cultures are no cultures, and if they imitate the European culture, they would become civilized. If they imitate their versions of sexuality, only they would produce. In fact, this is something that is related to my another paper presentation that I presented in Khalishani Mahavidyalaya in collaboration with Mohestola College, Kolkata, where I was talking about biopolitical transformation of sex from uh, recreation to procreation, and how sex used to be recreation, a pleasure, enjoyment, and how it has become a process of procreation, a karkhana, almost a bourgeois duty. So I humorously termed my paper "Is Sex Duty? Biopolitical Transformation of Sexuality from from recreation to procreation." Yes, unfortunately, sex has become a duty. Sex has become from being ars erotica to being scientia sexualis. Now, if no, it isn't. Ultimately, you have to live in the real world, and without your family, you are nothing. So this is your senior would say. Whenever you will try to cross gender, you try to cross class, you try to cross uh, caste. Suppose you are Hindu, you are marrying Muslim, so you are crossing religion. Suppose you are black, you are marrying. You are white, you are marrying a black, you are crossing race. Suppose you are Brahmin, you are marrying a Dalit, so you are crossing caste. So suppose you are able and you are marrying a disabled, you are crossing disability. Suppose you are heterosexual and you are marrying a lesbian, you are crossing gender. Suppose you are rich, you are marrying a poor, so you are crossing class. So marrying a boy is okay, but marrying a Sinhala boy can also be okay. But marrying a Sinhala boy is not okay when you are a Tamil tiger girl yourself. So this is the phobia of uh, caste comes in. Now, marrying uh, is patriarchal, but patriarchy would always celebrate the marriage if it is appropriated within the medico-juridical panopticon of parental patriarchal authority. That is what is not happening with Radha, and that is what Mala is hinting at Radha when she is saying, "No, no, no, you are getting married without your approval of your mother. If you marry without your approval of your mother, you would never be happy. মা বাবার আশীর্বাদ ছাড়া কোনোদিন সুখী হতে পারবি না রে বাবু." This kind of ভালোবাসা is very similar to what I call blackmailing or sentimentalization of the blackmailing. And this sentimentalized blackmailing is incredibly patriarchal indeed. And Radha aunty was silent. And don't forget, uh, Mala aunty added, things are getting worse between the Sinhala and the Tamils. So these it reminds me of a movie called Maniratnam's movie called Bombay. I think you replace this with Hindu Muslim in that movie from the Tamil tiger Sinhala situation of civil war in Salvador, Sri Lanka. And these Tamil tigers in Jaffna are very serious about a separate state, and they are determined to get this Ilam, even if they have to use violence to do it. And this violence, is it not very similar to the violence of laughter, because when we laugh at a gay or at effeminate or feminine queer, then is it not violence? Are you not being violent? Are you not denying him or her his or her identity? I'm not playing with the his or her pronoun politics, because otherwise I would have to theorize Jordan Peterson. Again, I do not have absolutely no time to theorize Jordan Peterson here. And rubbish, Radha Auntie said, utter rubbish. All this separation talk will come to nothing. I hope you are right. Mala Auntie replied, otherwise, people in mixed marriages will find themselves in a terrible dilemma. I think before everybody dies in boredom, I have decided to end this stream. So I am not going to put you into coma out of the monotony in my lecture. But before I leave, I would like to leave with a couple of thoughts. And those thoughts are, people of mixed marriages would suffer more than people in pure marriages, ethnic cleansing and purity of the marriage. Why am I saying this? Because marriage is patriarchal, and if patriarchy is having to do anything to do with patriotism, then civil war has no place in nationalism or patriarchy. So if there is a mixed marriage between a Tamil tiger uh, girl with a Sinhala boy, then obviously their marriage would not be approved by two ideologies: ideology of patriotic nationalism, and number two, ideology of parents. And remember how parents work hand in gloves with patriarchy, and how patriarchy work hand in hand with parents. Therefore, as we already have seen, how in that famous movie of Amir Khan, again, I'm very bad at remembering movies. Amir Khan played the role of a father who masculinized all his daughters into 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 male gymnasts, so that he could address his own unsuccessful trauma as a gymnast himself. So in that movie, I wish I could remember the title of the movie. And in that movie, uh, uh, thank you. I could see in my YouTube live chat, uh, they are suggesting it is Dangal. Yes, I agree, it is Dangal. Thank you for the suggestion, for reminding me of the title. And in that movie Dangal, Amir Khan was playing the role of a father. I think this role of a father is very similar to the role of a nation, which patriotically, which patriotically converts all his civilians into patriotic gymnasts, exactly the way father wants them to be. So I think that movie, like most of the movies of Amir Khan, is a very patriotic movie. Hmm. And Amir Khan, if Amir Khan were not born, and if Amir Khan and didn't make movies, and if Amir Khan and was not a part of Bollywood, the world would not have known that Indians are so patriotic. And this is the mixed part marriage. I think the previous lecture covers the mixed part. And so far as marriage is concerned, I think love and marriage goes like a horse and carriage. Thank you for tuning in. I beg my humblest of apologies if I have got anything wrong in my first ever YouTube live. Thank you. Thank you so much. See you soon. Take care. Bye bye.